Hi everyone, and welcome to the weekly outlook for the Forex market using DTS. Last week was a particularly ugly week to trade, and I didn't trade any trades beyond our Tuesday live session. I saw enough volatility, and it really wasn't a good market, so I just took the week off. Last week was a losing week, and one that I did not particularly relish. But onwards and upwards. Sometimes the market is just bad and you can't win all the time, but we just try to win more than we lose. Anyway, looking at the euro to start off with here, you can see that the last few days, and this being a holiday week, does change things a bit. So we get a slightly later start into the week. And as you can see, the last few candles are dojis, and that's never a good sign. So that means that price is either accurately priced or there's a lot of indecision on which way price should go. As you can see that last week it was a tale of two markets. We started off the week continuing to bounce off 1.34 after an ugly close through, which didn't hold.
Trend.
But then almost as soon as we started to rise, we crashed. And it did end up stopping at our previously marked area of 1.33, and a few of you could have gotten bounce trades there. I didn't even bother. So that's essentially what's happened. Where we go from here is, first of all, I definitely want to see some movement. I would personally like a pullback to 1.33, then with a long signal, or I would like a breakage of 1.34 with a pullback and then a long signal, or alternatively a bounce off 1.34 to short. If it's going to stay in the band between 1.33 and 1.34, we may just want to wait for a breakout of the area altogether before trading. So maybe the euro isn't the best one to trade. If you do trade it cautiously. Let's check out the pound. And here is the pound versus the US dollar on the daily chart. As we've discussed for the last few weeks, this has been going down, so it's got a pretty good downtrend going on. We keep breaching our important areas of support and resistance, our 5800 and 5820. After it couldn't break above it, it darted down, and we had 5630 area, which it bounced off of a couple times here. And then finally broke through after another failed attempt here. Essentially, it's a pretty safe bet to say this is in a downtrend now, so short trades are the preferred. Of course, we would still like it to pull back before taking a short to potentially one of our areas of support and resistance that were major. That's just on a higher time frame, though. We can certainly look back. We can look for pullbacks to say 5550 or 5500, which is a good whole number. So we're looking for short trades. Either if we get a nice pullback up to major support and resistance, we'll take a bigger trade. If we just get a general pullback during an active market, then we can still take a short trade. We'll be looking for bounces off the 1.54 area for counter trend long trades. Once again, as you can see, the pound is still not in sync with the euro, and that is bothersome and makes for slightly more challenging trading. So just be careful with this one as well, but at least it does seem that this has a much more established downtrend. And here's the Australian dollar versus the US dollar, also on the daily chart. This pair has been respecting technical areas a lot more cleanly than the other two majors, and for this reason I would think that this is where we may want to focus on this week. As we can see, the 1.0330 area was important, and after it broke below, it was hard to re-break to the upside. It finally did. It couldn't hold, and so it re-broke below. We've had one test so far that has come up, and again, for trading, I will definitely be looking for shorts that bounce off this area, either up at 1.0330, or just if it breaks below and pulls back to 1.0300, I'll also look for shorts there, of course with DTS signals. That's a very important part of the formula here. Of course, we should have our stops at all times behind 1.0330, even as far back as beyond 1.0350, to give us a little bit of extra protection.
Swing.
So we'll be looking for short trades. If the market just plummets, we will be looking for long trades off of 1.0170 area. And the Aussie versus the US dollar is pretty straightforward. The daily ranges are starting to pick up a little bit. So this will probably be my first one to look at and hopefully get the best trades from. And here's the euro yen on the daily chart. Up until last week, this pair had just been producing incredible returns as it just skyrocketed upwards. On this chart, you can see I placed some minor support and resistance lines at 124 and 123, as that's kind of contained this recent range. Now look what's happened in the last few sessions. So we've gone into a sideways pattern. This kind of price action on the daily is not my favorite to trade. When price starts doing that, it's best to back off or go down to smaller time frames. And for you scalpers out there, this is probably the time to shine when the market's doing this. It's really hard to make bigger trades with that kind of up and down volatile swinging. But for scalpers, should be doing pretty well, as long as you still attempt to take your trades away from support and resistance. It hasn't been perfect lately, but it's still pretty much holding to this uptrend. And you can see that we're getting into the wedge of horizontal support and resistance at 126 and the rising trend line. So the closer it gets to the point here, the more likely that there's going to be some explosive action either in one direction or another. So it could explode up or it could explode down. And that's essentially what we're going to be waiting to see. I've placed this trend line so that it's on all of our DTS charts for when we trade during the live trading session. If it does break down, I will definitely be looking for a bounce off of this area, which is, I believe, 121.30. And the reason is it's been a very important support and resistance in the past. And if we fib this last move from our low point here to our recent high of here, you can see that that 121.30 area is also a major fib from this last major move up. So whenever you have two major things that converge like that, if we had a trend line as well, that would be what I would call a power trade. Power trade is when you have three major areas of convergence: a fib, a trend line, and a horizontal support and resistance, or a major whole number.
Scalp.
All three at the same time, or even all four at the same time. Those areas I usually increase the value of how much I trade with, as I consider that a very high probability trade. But if we do get the pullback to 121.30 area, I would be definitely looking for a long. In the meantime, we can always break out upwards, and then we'll be looking for pullbacks to this area followed by a long. Don't get discouraged if you've had a hard time over the last couple weeks. The market goes from very easy to trade to very difficult, and that's why we always have to pay attention to what's going on. So hopefully this week we start to get some movement, but we are in a holiday week, so we'll just have to wait and see. Let's go ahead and take a look at the Aussie versus the yen. Okay, just as I had mentioned with the Aussie versus the US dollar, I'm definitely digging the way the Aussies are respecting the technical areas a lot more than the other pairs. But as we just saw with the euro yen, we are starting to get into a little sideways action here. Now, I hope you remember what happened last time. We got stuck in the sideways action. We had an area to break, and that area was 95. And 95 has not been rebroken since we had our breakout here. Let me clear this out so you can see a little better. We had our 95 breakout here, we had a retest here, and then price has continued on upwards and not come back yet. It may or may not. But what we are now looking for is, where is the upper area? So we have to try to figure that out. Zoom it on in, and you can see here. I think it is probably around 97. And 97 doesn't take into account these other two candles. So where does that put us? At around 97.5. Well, we can safely say that let's say 97, probably 97.45. Yep, close enough. So what we're essentially looking for in this case is that we are looking for this major area to be broken before we can continue the uptrend. So as we zoom out, essentially what we're going to be looking for trades is we want a nice breakout of this area. So a nice break above 97.45. 97 will also be an area to look for to take short trades off of if we can get some nice movement going in the London session. But again, I caution you because these are all pretty small candles for the last few days, and as price gets compressed, it does tend to want to jump out, and hopefully that's what we're waiting for. Obviously we could also be getting a pullback. Our first area of interest as we pull back is going to be 95, and then we have some minor areas all the way down to 90. So we can definitely be looking for longs off 95 or shorts off 97, or at the very last line in the sand before thinking long is going to be 97.45 area. So we can take DTS signal short off of there, or preferably if we get a nice breakout, we just wait for the pullback and then take long signals off of it. And that pretty much wraps up the major pairs. Again, we have gotten kind of into a sideways market, and that's okay. So we just tread cautiously and wait for the market conditions that are favorable to trade to return. In the meantime, again, this may be a great week for you hawk owners. Everybody else, just be cautious, and I look forward to seeing you in the live trading session. Of course, if anybody needs to get a hold of me, you can always do so at omar@dtsforexsystem.com, and I'd be happy to answer any of your questions or help you work through some of your problems or issues you may be having with Forex, trading in general, or the DTS system. Anyway, I wish you all the best and happy trading.